Hello, everybody. Just going to give everybody another minute or so, and then we'll get going. So just a few more people are coming in through that through the waiting room, so we'll start in another minute. Okay, we're recording. Make sure we're good here. Make this bigger. All right. Well, thank you. Hello, everybody. Hopefully, we're sharing now. Let me see here. Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Coach Rod. Good to see you guys. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it. I want to, of course, answer any questions that you guys have. And then, for anybody, right, as we move forward, feel free to type any questions in the chat. And any questions that you put in the chat, I'll make sure that I get to them, right, at some point. I might not stop immediately, but if something sort of just pops up, just remind yourself to be on mute. I think for the whole time is a little bit easier. And then ask the questions, right? I mean, we'll have a question and answers at the end as well, or really at any time. But I just want to make sure that you guys get all your questions answered, because that's ultimately the point of the Zoom, just to help, right? I just want to help and make sure that everybody at least understands what's the process. If they have questions about what's happening with NCAA stuff, I mean, I'm not a huge expert, but obviously, with the new legislation, but I do have some ideas as well. So I'm happy to help and answer that and just help guide everybody as we move forward. So again, if you have any questions, just type them in a chat, and then I'm happy to do that for you guys. So looking forward to Saturday. The weather's going to be great. I'm sure, as it always is, it will be looking at the weather anyway. So that'll be fun. Again, as a reminder to everyone, bring a set of running shoes as well if you want to get your sprint test on a track with running shoes with our Galaxy 2 strength conditioning coach, which will just be fun for you to have, as well. So just make sure you have a good pair of shoes. Again, it's optional if you want to do that test, but that'll be a fun part too. So let's talk about, just the process, right? So just to kind of give you numbers and just give you an idea of what things look like. I think it's important for everybody just to understand the challenges that we have, maybe if we want to play college soccer, right? If there's, in a ballpark figure, 450,000 kids that come out of high school that graduate in America, right? About 40,000 of those go on to play college soccer, approximately 1,200 programs. And that's NCAA 1, Division 2, Division 3, NAIA, junior college, things like that. An average class size is about 8 players. I mean, that does vary, definitely. There are some schools that bring in 15 players a year, and there's some schools that bring in 4 or 5, right? But generally, on average, it's about 8 players are coming in. So it's 9,600 spots. To give you an idea, about 35% of those are international, so it's not domestic students, plus gap year kids and transfers that kind of fill classes. So, it does mean there's not tons of kids that, comparative to how many are eligible to play college soccer, that get to play college soccer, right? So the goal, for me with these camps and other things are, how do we kind of help you sort of get to the front of that, right? How do we help in the process? You get seen by coaches, of course, but how do you understand? Can you understand better maybe how you can help yourself, right? But again, then as you kind of look at the numbers, there's about 205 Division 1, 206 Division 2 programs, right? So that means then you're talking about 1 to 2% of the 450,000 eligible kids that, well, I'm sure some don't want to play college soccer, but that did graduate high school playing high school soccer or high school level equivalent. That's only 1 to 2% that are going into Division 1 and 2 domestic students, and then about 3 or 4% going to Division 3, and then about 1 or 2 NAIA, and then junior college as well. So one is I think just kind of understanding the level, right? And just say, like, if I'm playing at a high level, and I get to college, this is a blessing, right? Whether it's Division One, Division Two, Division Three. And I'll get to this on sort of mistakes that I think families make. But I think sometimes just assuming like, look, I only want to do Division One, I'm only going to talk to Division One teams. I hear that a lot and I see that a lot. And I would just be cautious, as just as a family, just to see maybe it's just let's explore everything that comes our way. Obviously, you don't have to say yes to everything, but I think turning away coaches or just sort of not responding to coaches that show interest, I think is not ideal. And we can talk about that and what that looks like. What if you're not interested in the school? That's okay. You can obviously tell the coach, but I do think just because it's not a Division One institution or Division Two institution, I don't think we should turn those away, given the fact that numbers are tight or they will be tight, for kids, especially if this new legislation officially happens with most schools and they opt in to this sort of 28 roster cap at the Division One level. So let me talk a little bit about Division One. Right, of all divisions, Division One offers the most athletic scholarship money, of course, but the landscape is probably massively changing. I don't know what the NCAA. I don't think anybody knows what the NCAA is going to look like in the next couple of years. But at least as of right now, in the short term, it looks like a lot of schools will get closer to opting in to that 28 roster cap. So for some of you who have heard, or maybe you haven't heard, basically what they've said is if this legislation passes and schools opt in Division One, that the men's soccer cap on roster would be 28. The other side of that is you could feasibly have 28 full scholarships. So it's kind of a weird thing where, well, so are they getting more scholarships? Maybe, I suppose. But then the other side of that is that, of course, you can imagine schools aren't going to fund 28 scholarships on a non-revenue sport, right? So just because a school could have 28 athletic scholarships if they opt in, it doesn't mean that the school is all of a sudden just going to now going from 9 scholarships potentially if they're fully funded to 28 for men's soccer, because that's also women's soccer and that's also other sports that they would have to do that to. So if you've heard a little bit about, well, this is a good thing maybe that there's going to be 28 scholarships available, that might not be the case, right? So again, not every school has to opt into the 28 if it does happen and does pass, but a lot of rosters in Division One are sort of operating on that 28-man idea, generally speaking. So, this would be more to the seniors now and juniors. If you have an offer, or if you don't yet have a Division One offer, it might not be coming. They might be waiting for a transfer or something, right? Whereas if you have a really good Division Two, Division Three offer, that might be a good place to consider. But anyway, talking more about Division One again, generally the focus is on the sport first. With the school, it does depend on the school. I was a Division One athlete, so every school is a little bit different. But the sport was definitely first and foremost of the thing that I was there for. Of course, I was a great student. I went to school in the Big West, so I was a Big West Scholar Athlete of the Year and all those things. So those things happened, but I was there also really for sport, and that's an important part. So. That usually is what's going to happen in Division One. It's not always the case, but typically. In our April camp here, and on Saturday, we have at Loyola Marymount, Fullerton, Irvine, and Northridge. So we'll have 4 Division One institutions, all local Division One institutions. So those coaches will be on site and excited to have those guys. Division Two is similar to Division One. There's a lot of talented groups, players that play in that, a lot of talented teams as well. Often smaller sort of athletic departments, though, less funded. I think really the biggest difference, honestly, in Division Two and Division One is the travel. So in Division One, you're going to be traveling all across the country potentially. Depends on what school you go to. There are some schools, so again, like I said, I went to a Big West school, Division One. We didn't really travel nationally that much. It was just occasionally. But if you're at some other Division One institutions, you're flying all across the country. Cal Berkeley is in the ACC now, right? So they're playing North Carolina and Clemson or whoever, right? As for a home game, instead of just the schools that you would imagine they would play pretty close. So in Division Two, though, that doesn't happen at all. Like you're just playing in the West region if you're a West region team, or East, South region, whatever it is, if you're in Division Two. So there's really no travel outside of the region in Division Two until the Final Four. There's still scholarships available, but less. And typically the level is pretty high. It depends on the Division Two institution, but it's typically a high level for talented players for sure. So if you have a Division Two offer and the school fits you well, it might be something to consider. In Division Three, it's a more well-rounded experience typically. It's not to say that the student athletes aren't here for the sport, but also a lot of times the school is a lot closer in terms of what matters, to that student athlete, right? And you have a little bit more of a balance of the educational pursuits and what sort of happens after. Typically, most Division III athletes aren't necessarily aiming to play professional soccer. Doesn't mean they don't want to, just means that becoming a doctor, lawyer, entrepreneur, whatever they want to become, business person of sort, that's also equally high on their agenda, right? Doesn't mean that the level is low, right? There's some Division III teams that will absolutely compete with Division I teams. This spring we played a Division I team and we tied them. So it's not to say that some Division III institutions aren't really good, right? Over the whole, Division I is certainly stronger than Division III without a doubt. But I think you'll have some top end Division III teams that play good football or play good soccer and do a really good job. Again, depends on where you attend. You may not travel a lot, or you may travel a lot. There are some schools that travel almost every weekend in Division III, and then there are some schools that don't really travel at all. Our conference, for example, really doesn't do much travel outside of the preseason and the NCAA tournament. And then there's another component, NAIA. If you're not familiar with NAIA schools, we don't have any at this camp. It's the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics. So look that up. There's 188 schools. They have up to 12 scholarships for a team, right? So you may be able to play college soccer at an NAIA institution and, not even know it, and just that those are options, right? Sometimes they're not sort of name brand schools. If you're looking at, it depends on where you are regionally, I suppose. Right. But if you're in Southern California, there's NAIA schools like the Masters or something like that, or SoCA University is an NAIA school in Southern California. And there's a whole bunch of others, right? So, there's a lot of schools that might fit your needs as a family, and you might be able to get some pretty good scholarship money. Hope International is another NAIA school, off the top of my head. So La Sierra is another one. So there's a lot, right? So if you want to consider that, look at NAIA schools, and you might be surprised to find that they're looking for good quality players, especially if you play on a good college club team. And they almost need to fill roster spots, and they have scholarship money, right? And they're just looking for that kid that fits their mold, right? And just a lot of times people sort of ignore them. So just Google NAIA men's soccer schools if you want to find which ones are around you, and you might find a place that might actually be really helpful for you. Some things to consider, some reminders in terms of communication now as we start going. There's no limitations to contact after the summer entering your junior year of high school for Division I and Division II. So if you're if you're a junior or senior, so right now, right, if you're a junior or you and senior for that matter, you can talk to Division I, Division II schools without any restrictions. If you're a sophomore currently, Division I institutions cannot respond to you specifically yet. And we'll talk about those details in a little bit. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be trying. We'll talk about what that detail looks like as well. Players, of course, though, can talk to them at camp. So even if you're a sophomore or freshman, you can absolutely talk to Division I or Division II institution at this camp on Saturday. You can absolutely talk to them if you show up on their campus. You can absolutely talk to them if you end up on the phone with somehow, if you call their office or you show up in their office or something, which we'll talk about, which as coaches, we don't love just random pop-ins, but all those things, you can still talk to coaches. And one of the best ways I think to talk to college coaches as well, when it's not at a camp, obviously you're going to do that, but it's sort of through your own coach, through an intermediary. That's usually a really good way. If you're a freshman or sophomore and you can't talk to Division I and Division II coaches regularly, or easily, I would say. But again, I just want to reiterate, at camps, you have to talk to them, in person, or if on campus and things like that. I know there's some of you guys, it doesn't happen too often on the men's side, but that random kid that was committed as a sophomore, that happens, right? But that's very, very rare on the men's side, just because, men change and they develop, right? So if you're not on that track, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a sophomore or I'm a junior and I'm not I don't even know where I am, let alone committed. I mean, don't worry, most men's commitments are happening after junior year. Very rarely is it even happening junior year. So it's happening usually in the summer of junior year and into senior year. That's sort of the prime time. But then it doesn't mean seniors aren't also finding places in their second semester. So it comes later on the men's side. In women's soccer, Division I, women's soccer has the highest rate of transfer. And I think the reason for it was before all this sort of transfer stuff kind of happened. And it was, and I think that's because a lot of players would make decisions too early. As an eighth grader, as a ninth grader, you don't really know what you want, nor do you know how you're going to develop. So then, they would get to a place 5 years later, 4 years later, and not only was it not the place they wanted to be, but it wasn't the player that the coach thought that they had brought it. So, anyway, I just would say, don't worry. If you don't have anything, you're going into your junior year already, it's an important time, obviously, right? If you're senior right now, it's getting closer. So I'd expect that. I would say this: if you're a senior right now, I think you'd probably want to explore some NAIA schools if playing soccer is something you want to do, or maybe exploring a gap year, and we can talk about those details as well. If you're a sophomore or junior, don't worry, you're going right through the main time over the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months. So you have some time to get on radars. What's your objective? I get this question a lot, right? So you're shooting for, this is maybe the first probably writing down piece, is you're shooting for 4 touch points every year from a school. So that's what you want, 4 times a year, 4 touch points. So the first one is a coach to see a highlight video of you, right? So that's easily done in an email. Great, some version of that. You also want a coach to see you in your environment, right? In your club team, in your college, in your high school team, wherever you're playing, right? You want a coach to see you live, play in that as well. You want a coach to work with you at a camp, right? That's definitely something every year. So it's not just once, right? So if you're a sophomore, you want that coach to see you when you become a junior. You want that coach to see you again in a camp. You want a coach again to see you in your environment. You want the coach to see an updated highlight video. And then you also want a personal, credible coach to speak on your behalf to that coach, like every year. So kids that we're recruiting as sophomores, I would have wanted to hear from his coach 3 times, at least, right? At least 3 times. But one time in that beginning of sophomore year, one time junior year, one time senior year, just to see how he's doing. I would have also wanted to see him at a camp in an ideal world. If I'm recruiting him as a sophomore, 3 times, right? Throughout at least. If I'm recruiting him as a sophomore, I would also want to have seen him 3 different times at least through the process, and at a tournament or wherever it is, right? And then just seeing updated highlight videos. It's important for us to get a feeling for our players. So that's how many touch points college coaches want, for the kids that they're interested in, right? So you're shooting for these 4 touch points every year for each school, right? So that's a lot if you're getting recruited by a lot of schools, right? But if it's only 3 or 4 or 5, that's okay, because it's still a lot. But you want to make sure you're fighting for these touch points. What if you don't hear anything back? I know there's like, well, yeah, we email all these coaches and we send all these highlight videos, and then we go to camps and we don't hear anything. I get all that stuff too, right? Everybody's process is different. Keep trying. The reality is that some coaches are just bad about responding. So we'll just have to own that one. There's also the reality that, and I'll get to this in a little bit later too, that you're sending emails to the wrong place. So you might be sending emails only to the head coach, for example, and the head coach isn't the one doing the recruiting, or the head coach isn't the one that checks emails. So, again, we will talk about this, but you need to send emails to their entire staff that's on their website. Again, I'll go into details of that, but you might be sending emails to the wrong place. And then also, finding the right times, right? Whether it's making a phone call to their office, the office number is on the directory, and sending emails is one part of it. But being able to be that guy that picks the right time to get on the phone with them, and just calling them during the day or whenever it is, sending the right time of email, or again, going to camp and really introducing yourself makes a big difference and a big impact. So those are things that you'll want to do if you don't hear, because I think a lot of times it's kids that just go to a camp, don't really introduce themselves to the coach. They write a ton of emails, but they just write it to the head coach. So those emails may never get opened. And then all of a sudden they have this idea well, I'm trying everything and nothing's working. Well, you're not actually trying everything, or you're maybe not trying it in the right way, right? So I just, would challenge you to refine that a little bit and keep trying as well. But it's important that you understand there's also a different way how to kind of get that sort of that nuanced touch, that will allow you to push ahead of others. So generally speaking, that's the stuff. Let's get very specific, right? So 1, decide which schools are best for you, and then you hunt them. right? Like this is probably the one thing that I would say most people don't do. So this is sort of part one. Most people are a reverse of that. They're just kind of out there, like I'm going to a camp and I'm going to a tournament and my team signed up for this tournament and I hope schools see me. Well, yeah, I mean, we can hope that schools see you, right? We can hope that for sure. But if you can reverse sort of engineer that, I think you have more success, right? So as a family, sit down and talk about what are the things. We'll talk about some specifics, but what are some things that you want? What are the things that make sense for you and your family? And I'll put on the next slide. You'll see the list of questions you should really ask for yourself and your family. And then once you sort of decide that list, now you're hunting those schools, right? And then you're not only hunting those schools, you're sending emails to all of the people in the directory, not just the head coach. You're calling the office if you need to get into, if you need to just hope they answer the phone, right? Because if they answer the phone, then you can talk to them. Doesn't matter, what grade you're in. And then maybe you go to specifically the camps where they're at, right? And then you introduce yourself, right? So that's kind of how you can sort of cut to the front of the line. Generally speaking, a rule of thumb, and it's a pretty good rule of thumb, I think. You should have one school for every month before graduation on your list. So, for example, if you're a senior right now, you're graduating in 2 months, or 1 month, or whatever, you should pretty much only have 1 or 2 schools left that you're just finishing the final details if you're not already committed at this point, which I assume if you're coming to camp, you're not already committed at this point. So 2 months, 2 schools, right? If you're a junior, so your list should be about 14 schools, right? So let's say 10 to 15. So if you're a junior right now, your list really should be 10 to 15 because you can't have a list of a million schools. And I'll talk about why, as we move forward. So that's 12, well, we'll call it 14, 10 to 15. If you're a sophomore, right, just add 12 to that, right? As you kind of progress through that. Okay, so if I'm a sophomore, then more or less I should have 26 schools on my list, 25 to 30. Okay, great, right? You kind of do the math, right? And the reason for that is if you're emailing a million schools, it's exhausting and not intensive enough. You're just kind of throwing it out into the wind and hoping for the best. You can still always hope for the best by going to tournaments randomly, right? Because if those schools contact you, that's easy. But you need to put in effort to the schools you're hunting that fit you, right? And it's important that you understand that. And that's how you also sort of get ahead of the line. And now we'll talk specifics, right? So you got to make an effective list with certain criteria. One, the academics and the levels and the majors for you, right? So if you're like a 2.0, I mean, Dartmouth and Stanford are not for you. I'm sorry, like that's okay, right? And you're intelligent in a different way, right? But like maybe not in the way necessarily they're targeting, So like that's all right. Just understand like where am I targeting, if the other side, if you're a 4.0 and very good academically in school, there might be some schools that show interest to you that you're not, that aren't a good fit, right? And we'll just say that. So another thing, if you're dead set on being an engineer, some schools don't have an engineering major, right? Or maybe they only have a 3.2 and it's a little bit different. So I think there's things that maybe people just don't quite realize as they're going through the process, and that would just narrow the list pretty quickly, right? So if you say 1,200 schools, we'll talk about 4-year schools, so we'll take away the junior colleges. So we'll say the 200 NAIA schools ballpark, 200 Division 1, 200 Division 2, 400 Division 3. So 1,000 schools that are 4-year schools. Academically, like you can eliminate a lot. If you're a high academic, you're eliminating the bottom half at least, right? If you're in the middle, then you have a little bit more, but you probably don't want to go down. If you're on the bottom side, you're eliminating the top end of academic schools. Then if you can just say geography, like, well, where am I interested in going? And some of you that's harder because some of you are open to go anywhere. I'm open to go East Coast, Midwest, or the West Coast. Some of you say I only want to go West Coast, right? So I could give you an example. If you say I just want to go to an academic school on the West Coast, I mean, you're pretty much right there at 15 schools. That's about it. I mean, like really, if you're talking about that having men's soccer, with your first 2 questions, you could eliminate 985 schools, right? 4-year schools. If you just say, I want a high academic West Coast school that has men's soccer, right? That's it. Your list is already 15 there almost, depends on what high academic means to you. You can make an argument. You might only have 5 schools on that list on the West Coast, right? again, if you're saying, I'm a mid to upper student and I'm hoping to go anywhere, obviously your list doesn't shrink that quickly. Um, Size of school, and I think it's something that some people don't recognize as much is small school, big school, medium-sized school. My suggestion would be in your area, right? You don't have to travel to all these schools. Just go to a small school, medium-sized school, and a big school and see where you kind of get a better vibe for it. So if you're in Los Angeles, let's say, even if you don't want to go to school in Los Angeles, but you live in LA, go visit Oxy, go visit Loyola Marymount, and go visit UCLA. Feasible, I suppose. You could even do that all in one day, but it might be tough for traffic depending. But the reality is, like, then you can see, okay, a small school, sort of medium-sized school, and then a big school, right? And then you can be like, okay, I really like medium-sized schools, or I really love the vibe of the big school, or wow, I didn't like the big school like I thought I would. I kind of liked the small school, right? And then so even if you're not interested specifically in Oxy, Loyola Marymount, UCLA, but now you like small schools, right? Now that kind of helps that process further, potentially. And I think sometimes people don't. Young players, young boys. I was a young boy. I didn't think about that, at any point going through my process. Finances are a big part of it, right? There's a thing called My Scholarly, which is cool, kind of aggregates some scholarships available. So you can kind of find some scholarships that are not related to sports. But, there's financial part to it, right? So understanding what are our family finances in terms of costs, right? And knowing what the costs are. There are net price calculators on every website, so you can find out how much school costs, right, without athletic scholarships. Your level, and that's what, part of the thing that it's not the level that you think, it's the level that the decision makers think, right? So, speak to your club coach, although your club coach usually tends to be too nice to you, probably. And then, this is part of this camp this weekend, right? Is you're going to talk to college coaches. You're going to talk to a college coach for a one-on-one evaluation. And you're going to talk to college coaches whenever you want, right? Throughout the time. So ask them, where do you think I fit? What am I good at? What am I not good at? What do I need to do for the next level? Right? Get those answers, right? That's what this is about for me, is giving you the opportunity, or your son the opportunity, to ask that question, right? Where should he be shooting for level wise? What are the things he should do if he wants to play Division I, Division II, Division III? And how does he do it? Right? Those are questions you have to ask, because the guys that are here at camp are the guys that can give you that answer, right? Even again, if it's not specifically for their school, they certainly know the level. And then sort of division lifestyle, right? As I think sort of the main yellow ones. The division lifestyle, again, like I said in the earlier slide, Division I is a little bit more sport focused. Division III is a little bit more balanced. Division II is a little bit closer to Division I, right? And just understanding, like, okay, well, do I want to definitely become a Division I soccer player because I want to become a professional soccer player? Or do I want to become a Division I soccer player because I just want to tell my friends I'm a Division I soccer player? But maybe I'm not going to an academic school. Maybe I'm not setting myself up for the next level in terms of whatever I'm going to be as a professional, not soccer player. And maybe I'm giving up a lot just to tell my friends that I'm playing Division I place. But I understand. Like I said, I play Division I soccer. I think if I went back, I didn't choose as academic of a school that I probably could have. And so I'm, speaking as a Division I athlete, a 4-year Division I athlete who had a great career, won conference championship, was all league, all these things, played professionally after. Would I have done it differently? I might have, if I would have known the things that I know, even despite all of that, right? So I think it's important. I wouldn't give it back. I met my wife. We have 2 kids. I'm very happy, so I wouldn't give it back. But the reality is, if I could think about my journey, I didn't do any of these things. I just sort of got lucky. I sent some email. Well, it wasn't emails then. To date myself, it was like type letters and VHS tapes to coaches, and then just found a place. Then the next ones in white, soccer program and roster position, those are almost on the bottom of your effective list part, right? Because that could change. It could be a new coach. It could be a new system that they could play in one system one year and then another system another year. And things change, players change, right? So I think the soccer program itself and the soccer position, roster position and playing time still matters. If you're a goalkeeper and they have a all-region goalkeeper who's a freshman, and he's going to be a sophomore when you come in, it's going to be tough, right? For 3 years, probably gonna be hard to play, you know? So that's a part of it. But I think the other 7 things or 6 things above should come further. First, part 2, you have your list. You got your 15 schools, you got your 26 schools, you got whatever, right? So you have to do that research. Now, next step, right? Okay, so you attend their camps, you're contacting them, you're contacting every coach in their directory. You're having your college coach, MLS coach, high school coach, ECNL coach, whatever, E64, NAL, NPL, whatever it is. Have your coach contact that coach on your behalf. Most college coaches like to talk to adults. Doesn't mean they always will, but if your coach has some credibility in terms of students or student athletes, I would say, that he's sent to school before, that's helpful. But I'll kind of go back to just starting on camps. Introduce yourself. If there's a school that you're super interested in, introduce yourself. Be that annoying kid. Hey, I'm playing right now, coach. My name is this. I'm on this team. I'm looking forward to you watching me. Thanks. Whatever, right? We're not going to say like, wow, what a goofball. It's like, okay, cool. No problem. Like there's no issue with that, right? We're not going to think anything other than, okay, right? But at least now we can put a name to the face of the emails and things like that. And even if it makes no difference, it doesn't hurt you in any way, right? It's good practice for you to come up to somebody and shake their hand with a firm handshake and say, hi, my name is this. And that projection, right, is important of, who you are. We'll watch you for sure. Like I said, then you're inviting them to your showcases so they can see you play, right? Play like a stud, of course. You're sending emails weeks leading up to those events when you're doing those tournament things, right? As this other touch point when they're seeing you play live. And then again, you're having all those people, well, not all those people, you're having your coach speak to the coach on your behalf. You have good highlight videos, all in one place and all of those things. So those are important. So that's part 2, right? And it's why you can't have a list of 100 and why you shouldn't be emailing 100 schools, because it's too much work to do it right. And if you don't do it in enough depth, you're probably just going to get washed away. It's like a bush or tree, that doesn't have roots. It's just going to get sort of, pushed away with the wind. Whereas you're more likely, if you have deep roots in the process, you're more likely to kind of stick, with the program. And again, if that random program comes on late, then, happy days, good luck, and, do it. But at least I think you give yourself a better chance if you establish roots in the recruiting process. So like, what does just a general email look like, right? So, just have an online profile. You can do it for free. Like you don't need to pay some other company to do something for you. You can just have it all in one place. The email should come from you anyway. Most directory emails that come from anything that's not you, a lot of times they'll get just deleted, generally. So you want to just put all your stuff in one place, your highlight video, your profile, your grades, and then just a clean link. I'll show you what a template thing should look like. It should be your highlight video, your sports specific stats, obviously academic information, why you're interested in the program. I'll give you more details on that. And that's, what you're kind of generally speaking looking for in an email. And again, I'll go through these details on the next couple slides. When should you communicate? There's a question like, how often should I send an email to coaches, right? Like, when is it, right? My answer is like, I don't think it's once a week or once a month or once a year or once a blue moon. I really think you should email coaches when there's a significant update. That's when you should email coaches. If you're just emailing me to be like, hey, coach, I miss you, it's like, okay, well, that's cool, great. But if it's, hey, I've won a major tournament or we're playing in a major tournament coming up, I've won a soccer award, we've won an award, I've been selected to participate in something, right? Or going to a big showcase, going to your camp, going to be on your campus, whatever, right? That's a reason to write me, right? In addition to your initial email when you're just connecting with me. So that means, I guess I would say this, if you're not doing those things, if you don't have those things to write about, then maybe you're not ready for the college level. So what I mean by that is if you're not going to big tournaments generally or winning them or at least competing in them, if you're not being selected for important things, if you're not on a team that either goes to showcases or qualifies for showcases, right? You're going to camp, so at least you're doing that. Then it might be an argument to say like, okay, maybe you're not doing the things necessary to be at the top level, right? Maybe it just might start with getting on a stronger team, right? Or improving your skills and things like that as well on the club side or high school side or whatever it is. But No perfect formula, just email coaches when you have an update. And your goal as a player is to try to create as many updates as possible, right? So that just means being on the best team you can be on, that you can contribute and make an impact on that team. And hopefully there's a good coach. This is like first template email. This is not like consistent one, but your first template email. So you made your list. There's 15 schools you're interested in, or 25 or whatever, right? And then you can kind of just use this template email. And this would be dear coach, last name, and staff, right? So in my scenario, Coach LaFleury and staff. You don't have to put all of my coaches' names. You can if you want, but you don't have to. But you do have to email all my coaches, because you don't know if I'm doing the recruiting, if my assistant's doing the recruiting, whoever. And if you only send it to me, like I said before, but I'm not the one that's doing the direct recruiting first, it may never get read, right? Because I want it to go to my recruiting director, who's whatever. I don't have a recruiting director. I'm not that big time. I do the emails. I do the recruiting. But there's other people that have different people that do that for them. So make sure you're sending an email to the entire staff. Find it on the directory, every guy in their program. I want to differentiate. That doesn't mean you can send it to different and multiple schools. So you cannot send one email to Oxy, UC Irvine, Claremont, Loyola Marymount, Colorado College. Like, you cannot send one email to everybody in one. You can send one email to everybody on Colorado College's directory for men's soccer. No problem, right? Put all their assistants there. Everybody for Oxy, no problem. Everybody for Loyola Marymount, no problem. But just make sure it's one program per email, although you can have all their coaches. Show up with their names. Hey, coach, whatever, research your program. I want to congratulate you for whatever, right? Go on the website and find something good they did. They had a good year. Comment something specifically that. If they had a guy drafted, if it's Division I place, great. If it's Division III place, something that they won. If they had a horrible year, talk about, maybe they had an all-league guy. Congratulations on having so-and-so all-league. If they had nobody all-league and they had nobody do well, then you might question if you want to go there. But I'm sure there's something else that you can probably find that's positive. So that coach knows that you did some research. Make sure you get their last name correct, right? So you're using a template email. Just make sure it doesn't say, so the Claremont coach is Edward Carty. I'm Coach Rod. Don't say, hey, Coach Carty, and then you write an email to Oxy, right? Make sure you're updating the email and checking it. And then I wanted to connect with you. Use whatever word you want there, because whatever your skills and work ethic, because I'm a great goal scorer. I'm a 6'2" winger who's fast and scores a lot of goals. And I think I can benefit your program, right? I'm number 11 and I played for this team, MLS Next, ECNL, ECRL, whatever it is. Coach Joe's happy to give you a recommendation. Here's a sell and email. Boom. I attend this high school and I have a GPA of whatever, right? And one more thing you can put in there, again, and I win all my duels and I'm, whatever your things are that you want to say, first team all league or this, that, or whatever, or, played the most minutes in my team, whatever, right? That's where you got to add, one or two sentences of specifics. You can view my profile for my academic and athletic information. Here's my highlight video, right? Basically, we'll talk about highlight videos in a little bit. Our team is playing in this upcoming showcase thing, whatever. Are you planning on attending? If so, whatever. And do you have any camps you'd consider attending? Thanks for your time. Name, year, boom, boom. Subject line, 4.0 center back, MLS Next. 3.0 forward, ECNL. Top scorer, 3.8. Whatever, I don't, just like a basic sort of thing. I'd put the class year 2026, 2025, 2027, probably in that email. And that's it. You can just use this template email for the first one, right? And then hopefully there's some correspondence from that. Typically there will be, but if not, it's okay. You just keep trying. And again, you make sure you're doing all those stuff we spoke about before. And the next step, right? And again, like I said, we'll talk about highlight videos in a little bit, but then the next step after that, hopefully now you're getting on campus, watching them train, watching them play, getting familiar if you can. Obviously, if they're across the country, that's different. You're going to watch online. Pretty much every game at every level now is streamed online. So in the fall season, just watch it, right? Like, go online. If it's Division I, you can do it through ESPN app. If it's Division III, in most cases, it's all live streamed through their website. So you can watch any college game you want without having to go there, right? That's something that I couldn't have done when I was your age or whenever I was, going through this process. But there's no reason not to watch college soccer in the fall, right? You just got to find the time, and you can do it online, if you can't do it locally. But I think you should also go in person to a college game so you can see it, even if you don't want to go to that school. You learn about that coach and program. You get connected to a coach like we talked about before. You make sure you clean up your social media accounts. There are some colleges that hire people to clean up their social media accounts. That's important, actually. Like I've definitely seen kids who've lost their scholarships or lost their offers because of stuff that's on social media. I mean, I'd make a strong argument you shouldn't be filming yourself doing dumb things anyway, but I'd make a stronger argument you shouldn't be doing dumb things anyway. That would be my first one, but certainly I wouldn't be filming those things. So nevertheless, I mean, I hope your social media accounts are already clean enough, but I'd make an argument if you're doing silly things consistently, you're going to hurt your chances anyway. Video stuff. Your video needs to be spot on, short, sharp, clear, right? There's always this question too. The first highlight video, 90 seconds to 122 minutes. We'll say 90 seconds to 4 minutes, maybe 4 minutes. 4 minutes would be long on the first one. Like, there's no way that you have 4 minutes of recent, really good stuff. And I'll talk those details in a little bit. But I think there's value in time or money spent in a really good highlight. And in that highlight video, it's got to be you doing the stuff that you do best. So if you're forward, it's got to be goals. If you're forward and you just have 10 passes, well, you're forward. You're supposed to score. If you're a defender, yeah, score on set pieces, but it should be defending. Even if you're a right back, definitely it's got to be crosses down the wing, but it's got to be 1v1 defending. If you're a goalkeeper, it can be, you pass out of pressure, but are you making saves? Are you coming out claiming stuff on crosses? There's all those things that you need to highlight what you do well. But the important thing is it shouldn't be that long. And I say it shouldn't be that long because it should only be your very best. It should just be, you should think about it in this term, this way. The top 5 things, this is almost opposite of the social media thing. Instead of the top 5 dumbest things you've ever done that go on your social media, the top 5 best things you've ever done on a soccer field in the last 6 months should be your highlight video. And it should be in order of the very, very best thing that you did should be number 1. Should be the highlight video number 1. Like, that's it. Like, you want the coach to say, whoa, let me see this next one. As opposed to, I think sometimes people do it in reverse almost. They're kind of like, they like, oh, I'm going to have this big buildup and the crescendo to the final last clip. It's going to be great. The coach would have left 2 minutes ago. So that first clip, I can assure you, I can tell you this, honestly, we're watching the first clip. And if the first clip doesn't make us want to watch a second clip, we're not going to watch it. We're not going to watch anymore. So it's important that you're doing that because, the reality is, like, you just have to make us want to watch, and we get tons of videos. So I think it's just an important part. I skipped through that. Another thing, make sure, please, make sure every clip has a halo, like a circle, something. Don't be like, hey, I'm the guy in green with red shoes. And nothing makes me not want to watch a video more than that, Like, even if it seems like obvious, because it is obvious to you, right? You know exactly who you are in every clip, but we don't. So, like, if you clip, the first one has a highlight, like a circle, but then the second one doesn't, we're going to be like, oh, wait, which kid was he? And then that just kind of makes us less excited to see it. So every single new clip needs the arrows, the circles, whatever, the highlight, whatever you want to make it, squiggly line, doesn't matter. And there's got to be a little bit of rollback about 4 or 5 seconds before the thing. And then probably about 4 or 5 seconds, depends on what it is, unless it's the goal, 4 or 5 seconds after. So, for example, if it's your center midfielder and it's just like a really good pass, because it's easy if it's a goal, but like if it's a pass, I'd still like to see the 3, 4, 5 seconds to see your movement to get available. Like, did you actually work to get available, or were you just standing there and then you were open? And I'd like to see, how did that pass end up? So yeah, I'm assuming you completed that pass, but did you put that player in a good position? That sort of 3, 4, 5 seconds after. Obviously, again, if you're forward, it's the goal, but can you see your movement on the front end? So maybe there's less back end stuff because, okay, the goal soon hits the back of the net, that's fine. But what's the stuff on the front end of it? So if you can just spend time making a really good video, 2 minutes, It's a lot of work to get 2 minutes of really good stuff, again, and I'm saying your best stuff. And then you're constantly just updating all that. I did see a question in the chat. Yes, I'll email you guys the slides and I'll email you the recording as well. So you get this. Yeah, like highlight video should be 2 minutes of really good stuff, and you're always updating it with your best stuff. So basically, again, if you rank your top video, your top things, top 5 clips, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? If you get something better, so let's say you have your 5, and then you do something really well in the next game, and that's like, ooh, this is like my 3rd best thing. Great, chop off number 5. Don't make the list longer. Just that means what was number 3 now becomes number 4, and what was number 4 now becomes number 5, and then your new thing is now slides into the number 3, right? And then you just kind of keep updating your list, and then hopefully your 1 becomes really good. You do something better that's your 1, and then that pushes your 1 down to 2, and it's just like that, right? Instead of just kind of like adding to a long mediocre video, make it 5 clips of amazingness, and then make me say, hey, can I see more? This was great. I want to see it. That's what you want a coach to say, not like, oh, that was 4 minutes that I didn't watch. I only watched 30 seconds and it wasn't good. So just want to help you on that, but only your best stuff. Spend time or money. So maybe this is where you have somebody help you if you can't do it, or I think you can probably, all you guys are probably savvy enough to do it. Another thing that's come up that's been really helpful is I think you should have a college coach or club coach who's well-known speak over the video. So while the video is playing, right, you don't have to do some song. I mean, I would say the song matters in no way other than hurting you. The song could hurt you, right? So what I mean by that is if you pick a wrong song with a lot of bad words, that could hurt you. I mean, it may not, right? Coaches sometimes mute it anyway, but it could, whereas like a regular song makes no difference, So you may as well, if you have the opportunity, have a college coach, club coach, somebody who knows you, speak over it, right? So it'd be like while the video's playing, the coach can hear, I am so-and-so's coach, and I've coached 5 guys that have gone to the professional or college level, and this guy, whoever I'm talking about, he's just like them, right? He reminds me of them, the way he trained, blah, 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 whatever. So as I'm talking, not me, but like your club coach or whatever, I'm watching the video, and I'm like, oh yeah, he actually does look like he's a hard worker. Okay, I can see how he looks like he trains well and does extra stuff, whatever, right? So that's one thing that I would really just suggest that I think is really helpful is you want to have that voiceover sort of. Maybe it doesn't have to be the whole time, but I think it's just something that for a video, if you can have 5 really good clips, arrows, halos, you're playing clearly at a high level, and you have this sort of thing, this voiceover. I mean, I think you have a really good video, hopefully it's good enough, obviously. You go from there, right? And then, of course, you'd want to set up a Zoom and all of those things as we go forward. So then so question that we have here is if they've updated something, add on your highlight video. Yeah. So what I it kind of goes to that on the highlight video is it should probably just be a YouTube link. And then that way you can, the link doesn't change. You can just update the video, within the same link, right? I think, I mean, in some cases you can do that. But in an ideal world, you have the link that doesn't really change too much. But I would say if you can't do that and you don't know how to do it and you just create a new link, then it just gives you another reason to email those coaches. Hey coach, I've updated my highlight video. Here's my new highlight video. No problem. Like, right? If we're interested in you, we're happy to see it anyway. So if you don't know how to make edits to your video without changing the link, then it just gives you another excuse to email coaches, and there's no problem with that. No problem at all, to be honest. If you get a Zoom, if you get a meeting with them in person, I'm not talking about at the camp because that'll be a little bit more informal, but like if you're meeting in their office or you're on a Zoom or something, know about their program, go online, know the roster, know the record, know all the conference stuff. Like it's important, right? Like if I'm going to meet with a player, I'm going to want to know that he's done some research. But not only that, like the research, I also want to know that he cares. I want to know that he's prepared, that he's dressed up enough, you don't have to wear a tuxedo, but at least combed your hair, don't let your parents lead the conversation. If your parents are there. And this is me now talking as a parent. And this is actually, I'm going to talk both ways here. So as a parent and as a player, you can have, I'm talking to young men now, you can have your paper, like a pad of paper, right, with your questions. Like you can totally have questions prepared. No college coach can be like, oh, what a weirdo. Like that's actually more the opposite. It's amazing. Great. This guy prepared enough to have some questions, on a written piece of paper or notepad or whatever. So I think you should have those questions. I'm talking to you guys as players. As parents, if you guys work together on the front end the day before or whatever, you parents can put some questions in there that your son can basically ask, right? So if you have a question as a parent, right, that you want your son to ask, you tell him on the before side, right? And then so he writes it in his notebook, and then like he can ask that question. So then it looks like it's coming from him, your son, but it's coming from you probably, right? And then the other side of that, now I'm talking to players, is do that exercise with your parents, please. And then as a player, you don't have to ask that question if you don't want, right? So like, hey, as a parent, right, you guys do like as a player, you do this with your parents, hey, what questions, right? And then you have these 10 questions. And then as a player, you can decide if I'm going to ask those 10 questions or not. You can ask 3 of them. You don't have to ask 10. But at least you've done like an experiment with your parents to know what's important to them, right? Obviously, if you want to ask all 10 questions that your parents ask, that's fine. You can do that. But you don't have to ask all those questions. I'm talking to the players, right? But I think it's important to have that dialogue with your family, with your parents, to make sure that you're prepared. Are you asking the right questions? Are these good questions, mom, dad? Like what are some questions you think? What are some questions you want to know? Right. And then again, when it comes to the actual meeting, whether it's Zoom or in person, you can have those ironed out. But I think having them written, if you do get that information at that meeting, I think would be helpful. It's up to you, but I think it'd be helpful. And then what are some like easy questions, like, okay, these are easy ones, right? What does it look like in and out of the season? How do you team balance academics, travel, soccer? What role do first years play? All those things. The reason I highlighted this yellow one, where do you see me fitting into your program? Because that requires the coach to know about you. So if you ask me right now, where do you see me fitting into your program? I'm not going to be offended by that, right? I'm going to say, okay, well, I need to know. Like if I have never seen you, I can't answer that question. Right. So then you'll know how much I know about you. Right. So if my answer is like, oh, I think you'd be great, you're on a great team, and I'm looking forward to you. You haven't. Well, then I don't know anything about you, But if I can't wait. Like your left foot and your service and getting up and down the line is so valuable for us this year. I think we struggled having a left-sided guy who could really cross the ball and get up and down the line. And I think you'd be a great fit. You're athletic, jump well. I think you're going to fit into our system. We have wing backs that go high and whatever, right? Okay, now you're like, okay, he knows who I am and he knows what I do, right? So I think those are scenarios in which you can probably get some information back without directly asking it. Well, although it's directly asking, but you can get an idea of how invested the coach is in you as well. But these are some easy questions that you can ask if you don't know what to ask, right? And then there's obviously questions not to ask, I think it's important. Again, I highlighted you need to know what the school offers, right? So if you want to be an engineer and that school doesn't have engineering and you say like, tell me about your engineering program, then I'm going to know, or that coach is going to know that you didn't do any research into their school. So you want to make sure you understand that as well. And then there's just normal questions not to ask, like, why did you guys stink? Like it's probably not a good question to ask, but you can ask about the challenges they had, right? And to kind of learn a little bit more, which is easy enough. So I just want to recap and I'll open up to questions. We just have like a couple more slides here. Obviously, of course, become a better soccer player, right? You want to play college soccer, you want to play at the next level, become better, right? Work harder every day. Don't let one day go by where you don't become a better soccer player. Don't let one day go by where you don't become a better athlete. Don't let one day go by where you don't become a better human being anyway, but like where you're not consistently improving, right? That's your goal as a human being across the board, how can I become more valuable to this earth, right? And how do I continue not just go, in the wind, is how can I improve myself, right? But in this granular aspect, how do you become a better soccer player, right? That's what you got to do every day. Then while you're doing that, in addition, okay, know the odds, right? Like I said, it's a small percentage of kids that are going to play college soccer. How do I get to be one of those kids, right? Learn about all 4 divisions that are in that are 4-year schools as well as junior colleges. Again, if you're a senior and you're not getting a lot of love, there's probably a lot of NAIA schools that are waiting for a kid like you, to be honest, if the school fits you. Learn about the options on the financial side, of course, and the sporting side to a degree. Make your list, hunt those schools, invest time or money or both in an excellent short video, prepare good emails, of course, continue to play in front of coaches at camps and tournaments, remember those touch points, become a stronger student. Obviously, that's going to give you more options. For the most part, you want to play on the top level team, the highest, best, highest maybe, but best team you can play on is probably the goal, you know? It's probably that straightforward. Obviously, you hope that there's a good coach. I mean, there's only so much that a good coach on a low level team can do, but it's not impossible. But there's the other side that the MLS Next of the world, ECNLs of the world, you know, MLS Next, certainly, I think overall, just generally speaking, right, as college coaches, I think can all agree across the board in general, MLS Next is the highest level, and then ECNL is sort of under that. Are there really amazing ECNL teams? Of course, right? Are there really amazing ECNL players that are better than MLS Next teams? Definitely, right? So it's not like every MLS Next team is better than every ECNL team. Far from that. I mean, I think there's amazing ECNL players, ECRL players, EA players, MPL players, NAL players, E64 players, and teams that are better than MLS Next teams. So for sure. But generally speaking, you know, it's kind of how college coaches see it, right? So if you're not in those top tiers, right, how do you, again, you differentiate yourself? You know, that's an important question that you'll have to answer. And then, of course, leverage. Hopefully, you have a college coach or club coach, you know, that has some credibility in terms of getting kids to college. And then remember those, like I said, remember those 4 touch points, because I think those are important. Last 2 here. So again, some of the frequent mistakes, thinking it's Division I or bust. You know, it's not. There's just so many opportunities, and I see so many kids. So I'm also an academy director for a club, and I see a lot of times division kids that are like, no, I only want to go to Division I school, and then they end up going nowhere. That doesn't make sense when Division III, Division II, NAIA schools came after them. But that was their choice, you know. So don't always think it's Division I or bust. Don't feel like I don't know what to do. Hopefully, I laid it out for you. But don't feel like I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything. You can definitely do something. Hopefully, I was clear enough about that today. You got to make a list to hunt. And then you got to, if you want to play Division I or Division II, you have to fill out the NCAA clearinghouse. So make sure that you've done that on the NCAA clearinghouse wise. So you just go to the eligibility center, NCAA. That's for Division I and Division II. If you want to play there, that's in your senior year, junior, end of junior year, and senior year, because Division I, Division II coaches need to see if you're cleared based, and you just like submit your grades, you submit all that other stuff to the NCAA, so the NCAA clears you. It's about $100 maybe, and you only need it if it's Division I, Division II. If you're going to play Division III, you don't need to fill out the NCAA clearinghouse. But what happens is people don't know about the NCAA clearinghouse, so then they get recruited, and then their coach didn't tell them because their coach forgot, and then they kind of go through this scramble, and they just struggle to get all that stuff in when they needed to, and it just becomes, you know, kind of a little bit of an unnecessary scramble. So NCAA clearinghouse, just Google it, go to the eligibility center. That's if you want to play Division I or Division II, and just get all that stuff in time, and then you'll get an NCAA clearinghouse number. And then if you're getting recruited by Division I or Division II place, when the college coach says, "Hey, do you have an NCAA clearinghouse number?" You'd be like, "Yes, 100555321." Okay, great. Here you go. And then they can see all that information to make sure you're cleared and eligible by the NCAA. Some frequently asked questions about camps. You know, are all camps good, bad? What? I mean, yes, some are and some aren't. You know, like some are good and some aren't. Right? This is normal, just like everything else. So when you're assessing camps, including ours, right, be aware of organization or lack thereof, lack of pre and post camp tools. I think every camp should have pre tools like this and should have post camp tools. You know, you're getting the video. We have the option for extra analysis if you want that as well. You know, some camps provide certain services. I think our camp difference, like I think the eval thing is important. I think the conversation with coaches is important. You know, I try to, when I try to put the camps together, it's trying to, how can we offer the most value for these families to help them, give them the best chance, you know? And I hope that other camps try to do that too. So, you know, as you're kind of determining camps, you know, making sure that you kind of looking at it through that lens of like, are they offering me value other than just having, you know, our kid sort of play some games in front of coaches? Another question that I get about camps is, do coaches recruit from them? You know, of course. I mean, if any assistant, doesn't matter which assistant, if any assistant sees a good player that he likes, he's going to tell his head coach he would, there'd be no reason why he wouldn't, right? And I think there's sort of a misnomer like, oh, only the head coaches make decisions when it comes to recruiting. The reality is, in college soccer, most of the time, it's not the head coach at all that's doing the recruiting. He's only like the last one. Like, it's the assistants that are doing all of this stuff. You know, depends on if it's some Division III institutions don't have a full-time athletic coach, athletic, well, assistant, I would say. So like, you know, so it might be the head coach only in some Division III programs. But in a Division I institution, for example, or most Division IIs, it's definitely for sure the assistants that are doing all the recruiting. And then the last stage is the head coach. The head coach, most of the time in Division I, Division IIs especially, has no idea who the recruits are until the end, right? And then he's just kind of like, okay, yeah, that guy's good. So, you know, in the recruiting process, the assistants are the ones trying to get all the information and then, you know, having those meetings with coaches, however they do it, with their head coach. So don't feel like, oh, if it's not the head coach there, it doesn't matter. Actually, it's because it's funny. A lot of times if a head coach sees somebody, he'll go to his assistants, be like, hey, I saw this guy. And the assistants would be like, no, we've already seen 3 guys that are better than that guy. And then the head coach would be like, okay, you know, because he knows that the assistant coaches are the ones that are pretty much doing all the recruiting and know all the kids. So, you know, I think there's sort of a misunderstanding on that, like assuming that only head coaches make those decisions, but usually head coaches are not in the process before that. They just make the final decision. It's typically the assistants. Okay, so you have, you know, some questions. Well, hopefully you have the roadmap. So I'll open it up to questions. I mean, there weren't many questions on it, so you guys can type in any question that you have, but that was my last slide. So just to kind of help everybody, again, I'll email and, you know, well, I'll send this to you guys in the recording, but do you have any other questions? All right. I don't know if that's good or bad. But if you guys don't have any questions, I look forward to seeing you on Saturday. You should have all the information that you need. And then let me know if you have any questions in the meantime. Otherwise, we will see you guys on Saturday. All right, you guys. Take care. Have a good night. My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Of course, guys. Take care.